Welcome to Cruise News, your daily update on everything happening at sea. Visit cruisenews.io to see today's stories and sign up for email alerts.
You know, if you imagine packing your bags for a luxury vacation right now, you're standing at this literal crossroads of the modern travel industry.
Yeah, a massive crossroads.
Right. Because on one hand, you could choose an itinerary where your biggest adventure is, I don't know, exploring a local logging museum just a few hundred miles from your house. You're completely wrapped in that safety blanket of domestic infrastructure.
Which sounds pretty nice, honestly.
It does. But on the other hand, you could board a ship heading so far off the grid that a medical emergency suddenly means relying on high-stakes international diplomacy just to find an open hospital bed.
And that choice, it really isn't just a hypothetical scenario anymore. Today we're doing a deep dive into two vastly different stories that prove the cruise industry is it's no longer a monolithic, one-size-fits-all vacation.
No, not at all.
We are seeing this massive structural split in how travelers are evaluating risk and comfort and geography. We've got an absolute explosion of growth in accessible domestic cruising right in the American Midwest.
Yeah, happening right now.
Exactly, playing out at the exact same time as a highly complex, deeply tragic health emergency on an expedition ship way down in the remote South Atlantic.
And these two narratives, they're fundamentally shaping how you, the traveler, are going to make your next booking decision. I mean, when you look at the Great Lakes boom, you are basically seeing a masterclass in the appeal of the controlled environment.
Right.
Let's look at what happened just this past Sunday in Escanaba, up in Michigan's Upper Peninsula.
It is the perfect micro-example of this whole macro trend. So Sunday morning, around 8 a.m., the Victory pulls into the North Shore Marine Terminal.
Officially opening Escanaba's cruise season.
You're right. It drops off about 150 passengers. And they aren't, shuffling off to massive duty-free shopping malls or crowded beach clubs.
Far from it. I mean, the shore excursion program moved these guests straight from the waterfront into the Delta County Chamber Museums.
Oh, wow. Straight to the museums.
Yeah, they spent the morning learning about this outdoor entrepreneur, Webster Marble. He's the mind behind Marble Arms. And they were just soaking in the Upper Peninsula's specific role in U.S. military history.
It really feels like unpacking a time capsule right in your own backyard.
It does, yeah.
It's intimate, it's heavily educational, and frankly, it is deeply predictable. Which, it kind of makes me wonder about the scale of this. Why does this highly localized, almost neighborhood-level focus suddenly drive such massive macroeconomic growth for the broader cruise industry?
Well, the secret is exactly that predictability. Travelers are just pivoting hard toward domestic immersion right now because they want the cultural enrichment of travel, but, without the friction of international logistics.
Right. Nobody wants the friction.
Exactly. You eliminate passport delays, foreign currency exchanges, and honestly, the anxiety of navigating unfamiliar medical systems.
That's a huge one.
It really is. And the economic forecasts from Cruise the Great Lakes demonstrate just how hungry the market is for this. I mean, the region is projecting over 800 port visits this year.
Which is a staggering number for freshwater cruising.
It's massive. It represents a 15% increase over 2025. And they are anticipating 23,000 passengers, which is a 5% bump.
Okay.
But the metric that truly matters to the region is the economic impact. We are looking at a projected $300 million this year.
$300 million.
Yeah, that is a 25% surge from last year alone. And that money isn't bleeding out into international port conglomerates, right? It is going directly to local museums, local restaurants, and municipal infrastructure.
Which totally explains the massive fleet expansion we're tracking there. Because it's not just a couple of niche riverboats anymore. The heavy hitters of the luxury and expedition markets are fighting for dock space in Michigan.
Oh, absolutely.
Viking Cruises is bringing both the Viking Octantis and the Viking Polaris. Victory Cruise Lines is running the Victory I and Victory II. You've got Hapag-Lloyd bringing in the Hanseatic Inspiration.
And the season is literally just getting started. I mean, later this summer, Ponant is deploying 2 ships, Le Bello and Le Champlain.
Right.
And American Cruise Lines is adding the American Patriot to the mix as well.
And then you have the veterans of the region, like Pearl Seas Cruises. Their 210-passenger ship, the Pearl Mist, is entering its 12th consecutive season here.
12th season.
It kicks off on Monday in Detroit with an 11-night Great Lakes and Georgian Bay itinerary. That touches 8 different Michigan ports, including Escanaba. And when you look at that passenger manifest, you realize these guests have a completely different set of expectations.
They aren't chasing the traditional tropical cruise tropes at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
There's a passenger from New Hampshire, Alfred Collum, who was on the Victory I. He mentioned this trip had been on his bucket list for years, and he had this incredibly telling quote.
Oh, what did he say?
He said, "I brought a bathing suit, but that has stayed in the luggage. We've done a lot with cities and museums."
I love that.
Right. I love the absolute optimism of Alfred packing a swimsuit for Lake Michigan in May.
Oh, yeah, freezing.
Exactly. But it perfectly highlights that the draw here is intellectual and cultural. It's not purely recreational.
And the regional tourism boards are capitalizing on that exact mindset. And Jusma Miller, she's the curator at the UP Military Museum. She has tracked this fascinating secondary economic effect.
Okay, what kind of effect?
She notes that passengers frequently treat these cruises as like high-speed scouting missions.
Oh, so they get a tasting menu of the Great Lakes.
Precisely. That's the strategy. You board the ship, you get a highly curated, comfortable sample of 8 different Michigan ports over a week and a half, and you figure out which towns you really connect with.
That makes a lot of sense.
Then the following summer, you pack your family into an SUV and drive back to that specific town for a 2-week land vacation. The cruise creates this sustainable, recurring loop of domestic tourism revenue.
Okay, that $300 million impact starts to make a lot of sense when you factor in all those return visits. And as a traveler, you are completely insulated from international border complexities.
Yeah.
If you twist your ankle in Escanaba, you are a 10-minute ambulance ride from a regional hospital that just takes your domestic insurance.
Right, it's easy. Which unfortunately brings us to the stark reality of our second story.
Yeah.
Because when you choose to strip away every single one of those infrastructural comforts, the entire math of your vacation changes. Trading the predictability of the Great Lakes for the absolute isolation of the South Atlantic introduces a logistical profile that most travelers, frankly, never consider well until something goes wrong.
Right, and this is where we need to examine the tragic situation aboard Oceanwide Expeditions MV Hondius.
Yeah.
This incident exposes just how quickly maritime borders can vanish and just how fragile your safety net becomes when you push into extreme geographical frontiers.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation.
The ship recently suffered a severe outbreak of a suspected hantavirus, and the human toll is devastating. 3 passengers are dead, there are 9 confirmed cases, and 2 suspected cases.
To really understand the complexity of managing this crisis, you have to map out their itinerary. The Hondius is an expedition vessel that departed Ushuaia, Argentina, way back on April 1st.
And the writ was wildly ambitious.
It was. They sailed to Antarctica, then north to South Georgia, Nightingale Island, Tristan da Cunha, St. Helena, and Ascension Island, with the ultimate goal of reaching Cape Verde off the coast of Africa.
I mean, you are talking about a route that cuts through massive, unbroken expanses of the most remote oceans on the planet, just hopping between these tiny volcanic outposts.
Exactly.
But let's look at the operational side, because this is where the public health mystery really begins. Oceanwide CEO, Remy Boisset, stated unequivocally that there is no indication the ship itself was the source.
Right.
They conduct regular inspections, they maintain strict onboard pest control, and they have zero evidence of any rodents on the vessel. So I have to ask, if the ship is a secure environment, how does a virus famously carried by rodents trigger a rolling medical crisis across multiple oceans?
The answer really lies in the specific biology of the pathogen involved here. Typically, you contract a hantavirus through contact with the urine, feces, or saliva of infected rodents.
Like breathing in dust or something.
Yeah, usually by inhaling aerosolized particles in an enclosed space, like a dusty cabin. However, the patients on the Hondius were infected with a very specific variant, the Andes strain of hantavirus.
And what makes the Andes strain behave differently?
It is actually the only known strain of hantavirus capable of occasional person-to-person transmission.
Wait, really?
Yes. Now, it doesn't happen easily. It generally requires prolonged, very close contact with an infected individual.
Which perfectly describes the environment of an expedition cruise.
Exactly.
It is like lighting a match in a closed vault rather than an open forest. Even on a spacious luxury vessel, you're sharing dining rooms, you're sitting shoulder to shoulder in freezing, open-air motorized zodiac rafts for shore landings, and navigating the exact same enclosed corridors for weeks on end.
Right, so the working theory isn't a stowaway rat on the ship. The theory is that a passenger brought the virus aboard from land.
Oh.
And that is the active epidemiological investigation right now. Health authorities in Argentina are meticulously reconstructing the pre-cruise travel history of the initial victims, who were a Dutch couple.
So they're tracking where they went before the cruise.
Yes, they are tracking their movements through southern Argentina and Chile before they ever set foot on the gangway. They're even deploying teams to capture and analyze local rodent populations in Ushuaia, just trying to genetically match the virus to the specific port of departure.
Wow, the detective work there is intense. Let's also clarify the broader public health threat here, because obviously the phrase cruise ship virus triggers immediate panic for people.
Of course it does.
Andreas Hofer, who oversees operational coordination of the European Union's reference laboratories, confirmed they have fully sequenced the virus's genome. And he stated there is zero data suggesting this virus has mutated to behave differently in terms of transmissibility or severity.
Which is very good news.
Right. Furthermore, the World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus stepped in to confirm the wider public risk remains incredibly low.
Yeah, because the core issue was never that the Hondius was harboring some new global pandemic. The issue was the geography.
The isolation.
Exactly. The sheer logistical nightmare of a severe respiratory illness striking when you are weeks away from an intensive care unit.
Let's walk through that timeline because it really illustrates the terrifying reality of extreme isolation. The first known patient, the 70-year-old Dutch man, falls ill in early April and passes away on April 11th. Think about the logistics of that.
It's awful.
They are in the South Atlantic. His body had to be kept on board until they reached St. Helena just to be taken off the vessel.
And keep in mind, St. Helena is a remote volcanic island. It is literally one of the most isolated human settlements on Earth.
Yeah, and his 69-year-old wife disembarks there as well. Tragically, she collapses while traveling through South Africa, attempting to get a flight home, and she later dies in a hospital.
It's just so heartbreaking. And South African health officials actually confirmed her blood tested positive posthumously.
Right. And then the crisis expands. A 69-year-old British passenger falls ill after the ship leaves St. Helena. He requires a medical evacuation from Ascension Island.
And organizing a medevac from Ascension Island is an astronomical undertaking.
I can't even imagine.
You cannot just hail a local helicopter. It requires dispatching a specialized fixed-wing air ambulance across thousands of miles of open ocean to a remote airstrip, literally just to get that patient to an ICU in Johannesburg.
Wow.
The coordination between maritime agencies, aviation authorities, and international hospitals is staggering.
And the situation on board just continued to deteriorate. A German passenger died on the ship on May 2nd. By May 6th, 3 more people required specialized evacuation to hospitals in Europe. And then the ship hit a diplomatic wall.
Yeah, this part is wild.
As the Hondius approached Cape Verde, the local authorities completely refused to allow passengers to disembark.
Which is the ultimate nightmare scenario for remote travel. When you are in international waters, you are on your own. But when you need to enter a country's territorial waters during a health emergency, sovereign nations have the right to protect their own populations and their own limited medical infrastructure.
Right, they have to protect their own people.
Cape Verde simply could not risk importing a severe, highly fatal respiratory virus.
So the ship effectively becomes this stateless floating hospital. They were held offshore. Medical teams had to board the vessel out on the water. Ultimately, they had to bypass Cape Verde entirely and sail north to the Canary Islands, coordinating with the Spanish government for a highly controlled, quarantined evacuation.
And they successfully offloaded 87 guests and 35 crew members who represented 22 different nationalities.
Which left the Hondius to sail all the way back to Rotterdam with a skeleton crew of just 25 people, 2 medical professionals, and the body of the passenger who died in early May.
Yeah. Oceanwide has canceled their upcoming voyages to work with health authorities on a comprehensive, deep disinfection process in Rotterdam. They are scheduled to resume operations on June 13th, sailing out of Svalbard.
When you step back and look at the trajectory of that single voyage, it frames the modern traveler's dilemma perfectly. The next time you book a ticket, you aren't just buying an itinerary.
No, you're not.
You are choosing your safety net.
And the contrast could not be sharper. The cruise industry is expanding its capabilities in opposite directions simultaneously. It is mastering the hyper-local, historically rich domestic markets where the economic benefits stay within regional borders.
Like the Great Lakes.
Exactly. Yet it is also pushing the boundaries of extreme geographical exploration where the burden of safety relies entirely on complex, multi-nation diplomatic and medical coordination.
It really leaves us with a fascinating question regarding the future of traveler identity. As operators continue to refine the ultra-safe domestic experience, while simultaneously selling the ultimate thrill of untouched frontiers, Does the traditional middle ground Caribbean or Mediterranean cruise start to lose its edge?
That's the big question.
Are we witnessing a permanent fracture in the market where you are either a comfort cruiser soaking up local history or an extreme explorer willing to accept the raw risks of the absolute unknown? It's definitely something for you to think about before you book your next trip.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to Cruise News. Visit cruisenews.io to catch up on the latest updates and sign up for free email alerts.